All right, so we'll get going here today. I wanted to try something a bit different. Where I do a couple different sketches on the same page and kind of show my method. And I'm going to start off with so we're going to do some Day of the Dead skulls because I love Day of the Dead. So just start with a quick sketch, just a quick gesture. You know, that first 30 seconds, see what I can come up with here. See if I like what's going on there. You know, so I do something like this. Come in here. You know, and I've already got kind of an idea of what's going on there. I'm going to do a bunch of these, and the reason I do that, I had a producer that called it a shotgun method, and he said that I just kind of shoot out a bunch of different ideas to see what sticks and what works and what doesn't. And I've always kind of liked that, you know, just kind of get those what ifs out of the way. So I've got this sketch here. I have kind of this basic skull shape, you know, the eyes, the nose, the mouth. And one of two things is going to happen at this point. I'll either have an idea of how I could push maybe this shape a bit more, or maybe I'll go and do something almost the exact opposite of it, almost like a reaction to this in a couple different ways. So if I were to take this, maybe it'd be like, oh, you know what if I take that top, thin that down, really accentuate that front jaw then, right? You know, we have the eyes and the nose here, but that front piece there, and then I'll even make this a bit smaller, really accentuate this part of it right here. And maybe that's the direction that we'll go with this one. See what I've got going on there. So, you know, that's kind of the reaction to this one where it would transition to this. Whereas for this one, it's like, maybe I do something totally different. I'm going to take this shape. What if I really flatten it out? You know, something very different. Where this one is tall, what if I want to go in and really make it the opposite of that? Maybe I'll have some small eyes in here and a bigger nose. You know, I mean, just a direct reaction to that drawing up the top left to come in and do something very different. You know, and then I'll come into this one. It's like, gosh, I kind of like that. What if it's a more square shape? And what if I pull these front teeth kind of in here like this? You know, and where these ones are all very round, maybe this one's very sharp. Maybe this one's very, you know, angular type of thing. I'm going to have the eyes come down here like this. And, you know, so I have some of these shapes here. And just real quick, I can already see what's going on with a couple of these different shapes and what I like and what I don't like. And there are things that I can add or subtract from them. But, you know, I kind of already have an idea of what's going on. Something else I'll even do is sometimes I'll have a space. You know, I've got this space here in the middle, you know. And that's only just because of the other things that I've drawn. But now these constraints are going to kind of maybe push something else out there, something a bit different. So maybe I go in and take this shape and be like, oh, okay, you know, so what if that's the front of the skull there like this? And the jaw can't come over here, you know, so we're going to do something a bit different with that. Maybe because I have this big space down here, I'll come in and really, you know, get that going on instead. You know, so a very different shape that's going on. Maybe over here I'll have something that has something totally different, you know, very, very thin, very flat shapes going on over here, just because that's the shape that I'm left with. And now I've got, what if I really, really want to push the eyes on that one? That'll be fun. You know, so I've got something going on there, something over here. Maybe because I have this up here, that top of the head now is going to be nice and large, you know. This brow area right here is going to come in. I have that, and then, you know, the nose. Almost no teeth there, but yeah, so now, you know, almost this alien-looking shape there. Maybe the jaw comes down like this and then out like this. Not because, you know, because that's the shape that I've been given. And look, there's something else that's really fun. Okay, so I have these different shapes, and that's kind of how I'll go through and start shotgunning out some different things and have some different ideas for each of these drawings. And sometimes I'll do a full drawing and I'll detail it up and have all the bells and whistles, blah, blah, blah. And then as I'm doing all those bells and whistles, I'll have another idea, flip to the next page and do it. Sometimes I'll go through and just do a couple of these quick gesture silhouettes because, oh, what about? And I want to get those ideas out there. I can always go back to this drawing now and put all the details I want on it because that first initial shape, that first initial concept is in there ready to go. You know, so it's locked in. It's good to go, and I can add details later on. So I kind of like what's going on here. Maybe I even do one more really thin. Ooh, I like this, where it's coming in like this. You know, you have this L shape here. Have some eyes written there. And maybe that's what's going on with this guy right here. something very different going on there, right? Just because I have that different shape. So here we go. I'm going to detail up a few of these for this exercise. Going to go in here. Now I've got some of this so I can detail it up. I've got these light lines. I can go in and start darkening them. I'm going to start with the eyes just because that's where their eye rests, right? That's where you're going to be drawn to, is into those eyes. Eyes are the window to the soul. Got to get those in. Very important. Go in. Add some dark to it. With these ones, I'm going to actually add an eyeball kind of hovering inside this eye socket. Sometimes I'll do them where it's just all black, which works out just fine as well. It's a million different ways you could do it, but for these ones, I'm going to have kind of the eye floating in there like that. Kind of liking what's going on there. Nice thing about these skulls, they just have these great areas for these darks and lights, you know, like the eye sockets and the nose. I mean, that's just built-in contrast right there. Just really nice and ready to go get some good visual contrast going in, just because that's the way it is. So that always makes for a good drawing. These cheekbones to kind of come out, and then really push this straight here, you know, really solidify that line, kind of a curve going into it, but really nice, strong cheekbones going on there. And I have this curve versus this, or this straight, sorry, versus this curve kind of coming up and around there. That works really well, kind of fun. Adding in some of these details, have some of just some contour lines coming in there, showing a bit of the geometry of what's happening there. Bit of shading going in there. So now I'm going to go in down to this, you know, top lip area kind of coming in right here. What are we going to do with that? Come in, kind of have, you know, I want to make sure there's a break in the teeth right there in the middle, so it doesn't have like a tooth coming out right in the middle. You know, everybody has this symmetry going on here. So got that. I'll give them these big front teeth first, and then they just get slightly smaller as they go back a little bit, and just breaking those up a little bit for fun. Like that. I could go in and draw the whole tooth, and maybe I even will. We'll see. But just for now, I kind of have the shape going on there. I like how this shape is kind of working. This center line is kind of working real well going along there. So coming into the jaw here, I'm going to pull that back just a little bit. And so this is the area there where I'm going to have his teeth. So come in there and have it match up at least in the middle, but then these bottom teeth, what if we make those a lot smaller? You know, he's got... That'll be kind of visually pretty fun to have these bigger teeth up here and these smaller teeth down here. Just a bunch of those coming in like that. Then pull it down for that jaw area. Maybe even the bone kind of coming up in here like he's got this big old chin, liking that. And again, these lines starting to solidify this slight curve, and then this straight there. Nice, strong shape going right in there for the jaw. I like that. I like how there's a bunch of space kind of in here, but less so in here. It's a nice visual interest to that. Kind of a little off kilter, which I'm digging. And I go around, give him a nice big jaw. That was kind of the idea of this shape. So I have these different shapes going on in here. You know, I've got this big shape in here, this big shape in here, kind of some mediums. You got some small shapes. You got some thin shapes in here and over here. Just a lot of visual interest going on, which is what I wanted. So now I've got kind of the shape here. I've really solidified some of these lines. I could leave it like that and just have it, you know, it's a skull. It's working real well. It's Day of the Dead today, which I really enjoy. I lived in Mexico for a couple of years and just fell in love with the culture and things down there. I love the macabre of nature of these skulls and this death, and then the colors and the bright shapes and the happiness of it, and that mix of the two just really, I just think is fantastic. So we're going to add in some of those details in here. What can we do? A lot of times they'll have kind of flowers as one of the motifs going on. So I've got this big space in here. I can break that up with one of these bigger shapes. So we'll kind of throw a flower in there. I also have a lot of kind of curving, swirly lines going on. I'll try and mirror that over here, but it's gonna fade off his face because of the way he's angled. You know, some things like that. Just really some visual interest. It can be simple. You can do a lot. I've seen some of them that are just super intricate and crazy detailed. You can do some that are just a bit more simplified. Because I have this huge space in here, I kind of want to do something in there. Maybe we'll have just a little patterning above these teeth coming in like that. I'm going to bring this this up in here, so it's not just random. I'm going to have some different things that kind of come together. So the swirl again, we'll pull that up around the eyes there like that. Maybe we'll have the suggestion of another flower up in here, so that kind of mirrors again. So it's all part of the same whole, kind of getting this. I even add some more of these up in here. And that's the wonderful thing about these guys. You can just add this detail, and you can just add this stuff in all you want all day long. I'm going to come with another one of these shapes here like that. And there you go. Like, he's starting to really work, looking like a nice Day of the Dead skull. And you'd have a lot of fun coloring him up, some bright oranges and yellows and reds and greens, and just these beautiful bright colors that'll make that really sing. So, liking what's going on there a lot. If I wanted to take the time, I might even go in here and start shading all this in black as well to really push out this skull shape. But that's what you got going on there. I'd add in some shading here just to push some of these shapes and things away from the skull, so you kind of notice them a bit more, like that. And there you go. That's one of them right there. I'm gonna move on to this guy just for fun. Come in here. You know, and there's a lot of things that I'll do similar because I kind of like what's going on there. I like what's happening. Just trying to play around with that. It doesn't need to be a completely, 100% different solution for every single question I have at this point. There's a lot that I like, and I can take it and just move some things around. Keep going with it. Go in here, add just those teeth in. Nice thing about these pencils is I can just always go in a bit darker and really solidify those lines that I like. As I go in here, it looks like that nose was just a little off. I'm going to come in here, push him back just a hair like that. Now I like, this one, like, you have kind of this basic shape. What if we had these eyes and they're much smaller inside this socket shape? That'll be a lot of fun. I'm going to do that, see how that works out. Really just want to push with these things and play with them a lot as much as I can. Really darken this area. So now I have a much larger dark space right here. It's going to visually pop really well and look real good. So doing that in there. So kind of got that shape going on. Kind of that concavity right there at the edge of the skull. It's where a bunch of muscles and stuff will attach for the jaw and things. But, kind of giving that a bit more skull-like appearance. This guy, what do we put in here? What's going to go in here? What if we had some of these curvy lines coming up like this? Another one up in there, right? A couple of simple circles, just lining that right there. Keep that nice and simple, working real well. Bit of shading, right? I'm going to come in here, do the bottom jaw for this guy as well. Really, maybe we'll push these teeth even a bit more. Since these teeth are really small, maybe we'll have just like the opposite of this guy up here. He's going to have a lower jaw that just has these very large, long teeth. He's got an underbite problem. It'd be fun to take some of these guys and kind of what their faces would be. Throw some flesh, some muscle on top of there, what that would look like. Really pushing some of these shapes and things. Making sure that outline, that silhouette is really working like that. And just a couple little details in this guy, keeping that one fairly simple. Something like that. And you could go and you could do a really big skull and then just go to town with all those little doodads and swirls and things on it. So that guy's working pretty well. Let's go over to this guy over here. Okay, we'd kind of taken kind of the direct answer to this guy. So we'll do this. This mushroom shape up top. This guy, because we just had the indentations of the teeth, I'm going to actually pull some teeth into this one. Going to kind of sculpt some teeth into this right here. See how that works. Do something a bit different. Again, push some of these lines stronger than the others, so it's working real well. You can kind of see, but you can kind of see the whole tooth on this one and how that fits into the skull. This guy, keep these two eye sockets really close together. Last couple of them, we've thrown the the eyeball into the socket. We're just going to color this one in entirely, see what that looks like. Gives it kind of a dead-eyed stare, but creepier of a vibe, which I'm very okay with. It's working. Again, a nice small nose right in there. Some of these light lines just to kind of, almost feels like I'm sculpting with the pencil. You know, you're kind of just figuring out some of these shapes and where some of the folds in the skull would be and some of these things that are happening. Just letting my pencil walk along the page and finding some of this stuff out. And once I've got some of these lines I really like, you know, you go in and really darken those up. So you have kind of some light, softer lines for some of that construction going in there. That guy's working pretty well, liking that. Since we've molded the teeth out up here, should do the same down here. So just gonna start sculpting those in. I like having just a bunch of, like, you know, again, a visual interest. I have, you know, what, 6 teeth up here, and he has, you know, 12, 14 teeth down on the bottom, just because that's the way it works in the cartoon, right? But I like just doing that, where I'm playing with it. It doesn't have to match up specifically and perfectly. Those imperfections, those inconsistencies, those things are going to give it a little bit more life. You know, we had the jaw go all the way up here and all the way up on this one. This one, I'm just going to let this float down here a little bit. Not even sure how that would work, but I'm okay with it. Do a little bit of a visual interest there for that. Yeah, so that silhouette's looking really good. That's working really, you know, and so if I'd have just done that one and been like, oh, okay, that's okay, and stopped, I wouldn't have come up with this other solution here, or this solution here, or this solution here. Like, I want to get all these things out there so that I know, oh, but what if I do this? What if I do this? And I kind of like knowing what happens with those what ifs. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you get done and you're like, oh, well, the first one was the best. Or even, you know, like that didn't work out. That one drawing really isn't speaking to me. But sometimes you do get these answers that are really great. And then at least I know. Guess I decided to give this guy a mustache. You know, we're going to use these curly Q lines to kind of give him a mustache in there, which is awesome, and I'm liking that a lot. Kind of a combination of things going on in here, dots and swirls, all of that. Maybe even just some swirls that would curl underneath there. I like that. We'll give him some more of those right up in here. You know, so that one is kind of working. I've got a lot of space up in here. I can widen this out so it goes wide, thick to thin, you know, visual interest going on there. That's working pretty well, like him. We'll do one more here before we turn off for the day. Take this like this. And that one we had totally empty on the eyes. These ones I had kind of floating in there, a lot of space. What if we did one that doesn't have very much space at all? So the eye actually takes up most of this cavity in there. Just a bit of black on the outside to show that it's sitting in a socket. Color in the nose. Get some of these folds kind of coming out there as the bone and stuff, you know, is wrinkled up in there. I'm going to go through and give this guy a lot of teeth, you know, really push up this aspect of it. Like kind of adding just a bit of visual interest along this line. I could take it really straight if I wanted to, and that might be a good idea, but for this one, I'm going to kind of make it a little bumpy just for fun, see what happens there. I'll almost pull these lines up just like that. That would connect up in there. These cheeks, again. Apparently I really like making that really straight. Nice solid at the base there of the skull. Make him a little lopsided. I like that. You know, lopsided, it looks just a little weird. It looks a little kooky. They say that like the most beautiful people in the world are very symmetrical. And I tend to go with my drawings almost the exact opposite. How much can I push that symmetry and make and break it? You know, those are the interesting people. Those are the fun things going on there. I'm going to do some lines coming up in there. Just letting the pencil walk around. See what I come up with. Kind of like those actually. That's kind of a nice pattern going on in there. I like that. This guy's not too bright. He's kind of cross-eyed. I'm all right with that. Color in some of these swirls in here. Like that. And we got to go in on this lower jaw area right here. Let's make this kind of a nice large shape. You know, it's supported by this jawbone, but this nice big area right in there. And just start to carve out these teeth, lots and lots of those. Go on the other side. Just join it up, make sure that's working real well. I kind of like almost that this creates one shape. You know, we've broken it up just a bit with this cheek here, with this break, but we can create that singular shape going in there like that. Almost this one broke up just a little bit more, but that's all right. But it kind of creates this one big shape, even though it's actually a couple shapes broken up, but like the eye kind of jumps that gap for you. Kind of help this one fade back a little bit. This is the area we want to focus on. So if I can push this back with just a bit of shading, it kind of goes into the background and lets you concentrate on that front jaw area. Put some of those same swirls kind of coming in right here, just off the jaw. Color some of this in. There we go. So that guy's working pretty well too. Might even want, if I were to do that one again, I might take that, sharpen that out, get that almost a triangle shape going on. I kind of like that. Wonder if I can get that in there. Just sharpen that up just a hair. Yeah, like that. And there you go. So pretty quick, we've got 4 of these that are kind of detailed up a bit. I got 4 more that just the shapes were going on that I'll finish up later. But that's kind of the idea there, is to just go in and just let one idea roll into the next. There's a bunch of different ways you can kind of take something, squish it down and kind of pull it a bit, or you can take something and just react to it and do the exact opposite. This guy's real top heavy, so what do you do bottom heavy? What if he's bottom heavy and I have a big top skull? You know, you got a big skull like this with just a tiny jaw then, right? You know, you do the exact opposite of what that is. You know, so you have this long face with these big eyes instead, and this tiny little jaw as opposed to this big jaw. You know, you just kind of react to what's going on there and just ask yourself, what about? And then sometimes you let the paper kind of dictate, you know, what's going on, how much space I have left. That'll help you kind of come up with some new answers and things like that. But that's kind of the process right there. There you go. Happy Day of the Dead. Enjoy.